Welcome to the Language of Pearls podcast. My name is Deborah Gambrel, and this is a practical tip. Be careful of setting up in your mind and heart an ideal that does not exist. One night working out with a friend, I was sharing how I felt insecure at a women's event at our church. It was a Valentine's night event and I had signed up to participate. But when I got there, I was fighting off major insecurity. Not something that I'm usually fighting off, but I felt it bad that day. It had been a very difficult day, and to get to the event, it took a lot of work. I didn't really have time to prepare for the event or really pretty up or anything like that. It was supposed to be a pajama theme, hang with the girls. The first thing I noticed is that most of my friends were not going to be there, only a couple. And when I arrived, carrying my baby girl, trying to figure out how I'm going to enjoy the event without having somewhere for the baby to hang out with me, I noticed all the other women had these pretty cute pajamas. I did not own any cute pajamas. I was postpartum and not feeling pretty at all. I had uncomfortable clothes that in comparison looked very drab. They also had all their makeup on, jewelry on, and were going big with the Valentine theme. I felt insecure. I barely had made it there. I was carrying my sweet baby, not having a place to put her down or to breathe, and I was fighting off the tears. Finally, decided to put myself together, put my things down, the baby things down, and see if I could grab some snacks that were offered. But most of them were sweets, candy, which I rarely eat since I limit my sugar intake throughout the years to help my body in some health issues. In my total frankness, when someone else approached me, I said, "You bought that set of PJs for this event, didn't you?" A bit embarrassed, they answered, yes, they did. Truthfully, I was the one feeling embarrassed that I didn't have anything cute on. I felt so blah. Thankfully, one of the older women saw me and asked, "Do you want some help?" Now I knew I could trust her to hold my baby while I got some snacks, some fruit and some pretzels. While I was sharing about this event, my friend was flabbergasted that I could have any feelings of insecurity. She said, "I could never have imagined that you would ever feel so insecure." My internal response was, well, I am human, you know. This actually brought to light something that I have noticed. We tend to, as women, make these ideals, these false perceptions of other women and what life would be like for them. We imagine some sort of unrealistic, perfect world for them because our world is not as perfect, even though it's not the reality whatsoever. Now, hopefully, I have never given the impression that I have it all together and perfect, but the reality is that nobody really sees the struggle behind doors, right? They don't see me yelling at my kids on a really hard day where mommy has had it. Real life. Not my norm, but it has been known to happen. We talk about things like if others are in this nauseating state of perfection while we're not. The Bible does teach us to have our hearts and minds unto the one that is perfect, but then it is Him who perfects us. Our sense or perception of others is not just unrealistic, it's yucky. I remember when I was first starting out as a mom, and I knew this woman whose husband referred to her as a Proverbs 31 woman. She would wake up at 4 a.m. She would hit those big box grocery stores, do all the grocery shopping, come back home in time to put all the groceries away, make breakfast for everyone, have a clean kitchen, and a clean home before anyone else woke up. And then after breakfast, the house will be cleaned up again. She would teach all her children, because she homeschooled, which at the time I believe she had about 4 kids. The house was always kept clean. All the meals were fresh and clean, healthy meals. This husband considered the home his castle, and she always had to look her best. Oh, something I failed to mention, that in the morning she got completely dressed and made up, and also throughout the day to make sure that when her husband would come home, she always looked beautiful. Now I felt like a failure. I did not always look my best. I barely kept the house clean. And if we're talking about cooking, I learned to cook after I got married. Oh, I also failed to mention that they had a ministry together. Everything was scheduled, and I mean everything. And that's how they were successful in life. At least it appeared that way. Later on in the years, I came to find out that her husband struggled in purity. She lived in complete fear of other women near her husband. And she felt it was absolutely necessary that she continued with this woman of perfection in order to keep him happy at home with her. I also learned that they needed a lot of energy drinks and constant caffeine to maintain the schedule that they had made for themselves. Suddenly, the perfect ideal image began to crumble. I also realized some very funny things. My husband didn't really care how clean the house was, and he didn't really care that I didn't have any makeup on. He also kept encouraging me in my cooking, even when it wasn't all that great, until it became pretty good, to which he always praised me for it. I love that man. In fact, he cooks the most right now. One, because he does enjoy it. And also, since the baby was born, he takes over dinners, which opens me up to be able to do more. It's funny how we lift up people like in these crazy pedestals, like what they do is what we can achieve, and it may not be anything of what God has asked of us. You see, my husband wasn't expecting that woman. In fact, he found her a bit repulsive. Not because she was bad looking or anything like that, but because he didn't want to be the king in his home alone with a servant. He wanted a queen next to him to reign. In my home with my husband, I feel very comfortable. I don't have to be perfect, and he doesn't demand it of me. I wonder how many times we have these images interrupt the desires that God has for us. My friend, the one I work out with, she's pretty amazing. She's one of those people that has such a sweet, tender heart for others, far more than I do. I think I'm a big, broad project kind of person. She's a detail kind of person. We're both very different. What she assumed that I was never having any kind of insecurity because I was confident in many things, now that God had been doing miracles in my life, it was a bit of a false perception. Not because I intentionally gave it, but because that's what she saw. Yeah, I can feel intimidated and insecure. It can happen to all of us when we begin to compare ourselves to each other instead of comparing ourselves to our former selves. It's a whole concept that instead of keeping score with another or against someone, we keep score with ourselves, seeing how far God has taken us, as opposed to how do we compare to someone. So my recommendation is for you that whoever you think has it all together, whomever this person or friend is that you look up to the most, spend some time with them. A little bit more time. Go for a run, a walk, some coffee, whatever it is. Have some real conversations. And realize that they're probably struggling in the same areas as you are. Or perhaps you find out that their weaknesses are your strengths, and you can encourage them. You can encourage one another. And that's how iron sharpens iron. So a friend sharpens a friend. Proverbs 27:17. By the way, remember that event? I made sure that before I left, I encouraged someone else. So instead of leaving with the memories of all that insecurity, I was going to make sure that someone else walked away feeling pretty good. Sweet hugs, my friend.